the Grand Masters of history. Which undefeated Muslim general was known as the Sword of Allah? Khalid ibn al-Walid. Who is the legendary Chinese strategist credited with writing The Art of War? Sun Tzu. Which Prussian statesman was the primary architect of the unification of Germany? Otto von Bismarck. Which Japanese emperor oversaw the rapid modernization of Japan in the late 19th century? Emperor Meiji. Which Carthaginian leader was the father of Hannibal and a key figure in the First Punic War? Hamilcar Barca. Which female ruler of the Kievan Rus famously took a brutal revenge on the Drevlians? Olga of Kiev. Which Vietnamese general is famous for defeating the Mongols 3 times in the 13th century? Tran Hung Dao. Which Swedish king led his army deep into Russia only to be defeated at the Battle of Poltava? Charles XII. Which advisor to King Louis XIII was the de facto ruler of France for 18 years? Cardinal Richelieu. Which founder of the Ayyubid dynasty is legendary for his chivalry during the Crusades? Saladin. Which king of the Belgians privately owned the Congo Free State and was responsible for millions of deaths? Leopold II. Which general of the Three Kingdoms era is a symbol of loyalty and martial prowess in China? Guan Yu. Which French diplomat served under the ancient regime, Napoleon, and the restored Bourbons? Charles Maurice de Talleyrand. Which conqueror founded the Mughal Empire after the Battle of Panipat in 1526? Babur. Which king of Pontus reportedly took small doses of poison to become immune to them? Mithridates VI. Which shogun was the second great unifier of Japan and led the invasions of Korea? Toyotomi Hideyoshi. Which Athenian statesman presided over the Golden Age and the start of the Peloponnesian War? Pericles. Which king of Wessex was the only English monarch to be given the title, the Great? Alfred the Great. Which general of the Revolutionary War later became the first president of independent Haiti? Jean-Jacques Dessalines. Which Roman general and statesman reformed the army by allowing landless citizens to join? Gaius Marius. Which Portuguese explorer was the first to reach India by sea, claiming territory for Portugal? Vasco da Gama. Which legendary king of Uruk is the subject of one of the world's oldest epic poems? Gilgamesh. Which military commander led the forces of the Byzantine Empire to defend Constantinople in 1453? Giovanni Giustiniani. Which king of Judah is famous for building the first temple in Jerusalem? Solomon. Which empress of the Roman Empire was the wife of Justinian I and a powerful advisor? Theodora. Which founder of the Republic of China is often referred to as the father of the nation? Sun Yat-sen. Which Polish-Lithuanian commander is famous for the winged hussars charge at Vienna? Jan III Sobieski. Which king of Numidia was a famous rebel against the Roman Republic? Jugurtha. Which English explorer was the first to circumnavigate the globe and lead the fleet against the Armada? Francis Drake. Which emperor of Ethiopia was the only African leader to defeat an invading European power? Menelik II. Which leader of the Dutch Revolt was known as the Silent? William of Orange. Which Austrian statesman dominated European politics for 30 years as the face of conservatism? Clemens von Metternich. Which leader of the Mongol Golden Horde famously invaded Russia and Eastern Europe? Batu Khan. Which king of Sweden is known for leading the Great Northern War against a coalition of enemies? Charles XII. Which female sovereign of Castile and Aragon funded the voyage of Christopher Columbus? Isabella I. Which Roman emperor wrote the Stoic work, Meditations, while on campaign? Marcus Aurelius. Which Sultan of Delhi was a female ruler and the first woman to lead a Muslim state? Razia Sultana. Which Swedish inventor and leader of industry established the Nobel Prizes? Alfred Nobel. Which first president of Turkey moved the capital to Ankara and modernized the state? Mustafa Kemal Ataturk. Which general led the Carthaginians in the First Punic War and founded the Barca family? Hamilcar Barca. Which king of the Sasanian Empire was a major rival to the Romans in the 6th century? Khosrau I. Which leader of the Soviet Union initiated perestroika and glasnost? Mikhail Gorbachev.